All right, everyone, welcome back to the Freeform podcast. And I have one of actually probably my best friend. I knew that would get you excited. You guys also, if you're listening on the podcast version, you might want to go to YouTube to watch this because I feel like there's going to be a lot of nonverbal or very verbal cues that you'll want to watch because Mary Catherine's one of the funniest people I know. So Mary Catherine, you and I met through our network marketing company through some mutual friends a couple years ago. And we got the opportunity to spend some time together and then basically live together for a while. And that's really when our friendship started to go deep. And I'm just so grateful for you as a friend. You already know this. I don't have to tell you this, but you've changed my life in so many ways that I don't think would have ever been impacted at the depth they've been impacted. So because of you, we've been through some really intense times together and some really great times together, traveling together, events, personal growth journeys, just so many different things. So I would love if you can kind of share with everyone who is listening or watching, your story, your past, because you're such a very unique individual. You don't have to go into the isogenics world or anything like that, just kind of your journey. And then I have some topics I want to talk about with you.
I love it. You know, one thing I love about us is that we actually tell each other how much we love each other every single
all
day.
The time.
And how much we appreciate each other. And I really love that about us.
Me too.
It's like in the elevator on the way up, and I was like, how much did you miss me?
I was like, so much. I think I saw you 2 years ago? Yeah.
But yeah, okay, thanks. It's okay. So
am I too close?
Never.
Okay,
great. Okay. My background. So a little bit about me. I'd say something that really defines me is the way I was raised and where my soul chose to be born, which was in Birmingham, Alabama. I grew up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. But the point of that is just kind of the cultural norm of that area, which I actually am very grateful for because it was my access point to spirituality. And yet it came with its own kind of set of cultural standards, especially for a woman. Which I, for whatever reason, I'm so surprised by this, that I really did think, so it was good girls are meant to cover their bodies, not be tempting to men, stay virgins, and I was check, got it. And for me, it felt really important to adhere to those because, well, for me, it felt I could feel the intensity of not belonging in my family or in, my community if I were to break any of those rules. And so that felt really intense to me. So that would kind of formed and shaped a lot of who I was, or actually I should say it formed and shaped a lot of the persona of who I was, while all the while inside of me that has been kind of coming out over the past 10 years was just really true, expressed woman, and I, over the past 10 years, I've discovered a principle that has really changed my life, it's called erotic innocence, which when that principle was introduced to me by my teacher 10 years ago, and I came to her because I had been living this way as this covered up kind of good girl, pretending that I didn't, kind of operating from the neck down, operating from the neck up. I remember age 11 driving to church with my dad and him telling me some story about some woman who had been promiscuous. And I remember looking out the window of church being never have sex, never want to have sex, and certainly don't let your dad know that you have sex.
It may not be untrue.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to at least that last part. But man, so I remember being and I remember really in that moment cutting off from the neck down and just becoming intelligent, operating through the world, through how successful I was and accomplished I was and smart I was in school, which I'm not complaining about. I'm glad for that. But there's only so much you can access when you don't have access to your body. And so anyways, I share all that to say, so I started this journey, and essentially living that way led me to losing my period at age 25, not having a period for 2 years, seeking some of the most high advanced in Los Angeles, hormone replacement therapies, thinking that can you say vagina? Okay. Is that sad that I would think
I know. It's
still, yeah, geez, man. So yeah, thinking that I was broken and anyways. And so thus began my journey of trying to understand what was going on for me. And all that, I found my teacher, Jenna Laughlin, who changed my life. And one of the principles she taught me was, first of all, our bodies are animals, which I could get more into that. But that was kind of the first access point to healing my relationship with my body, which at that time I was extremely like punishing my body and with extensive workouts, deprivation dieting, also all this hormone replacement. And then she also taught erotic innocence, which was essentially to say that our bodies, like our natural inclination towards pleasure is natural. Like if we look at nature, if we look at animals, they are going to be drawn to that which feels good and naturally go away from pain or that which feels bad. And not that I'm saying moving into pain is bad, but what I'm saying is, that along with just our natural expression of enjoyment, it's not a good nor bad. It's not religious or it's not sacred or sinful. It just is. Anyway, and so I would say if I were going to share a little bit about my background, that would be a through line that has informed a lot of my choices in my life and a lot of my career choices and expression. And there we have it.
So good. And I haven't even really heard that part of your story. I've heard so many of your different stories. And what I think is so great about you is there's so many layers to you where like, as you get to know you, it's just like deeper and deeper and so much wisdom. I think you're one of the most brilliant minds that I've ever met. Seriously, because you've experienced so much in such a short amount of time, really. What I love about you is now you live this life that is so opposite of what you used to do and so opposite of who you used to be in a lot of ways. And I think what I've experienced of you, not knowing you prior, is how intuitive you are and like how aligned you are with just like Mother Earth. Mother Earth really at the end of the day, and honoring your body. And I think that's something a lot of people struggle with, is learning how to trust themselves. And so what I would love to have you elaborate on, because again, even getting the opportunity to live with you and spend time with you, you trust yourself more than anyone I know. You trust yourself so much. And I trust you because of that, because you're so willing to trust. And I don't think it's really ever led you astray. So can you talk about going from really being like disconnected in your body to now being so tapped in and tuned in to intuition?
Well, yeah, I'm holding back the tears because it was a hot, like, what is that saying? Like, it's a hard fought path. It's like getting to where I am and receiving that reflection I'm just amazed, because I remember when it wasn't the case. And so, yeah, to talk about it, I'm kind of mindful right now, whoever may be listening to this, and maybe in all different stages. There could be the woman or the man out there right now who has a difficult time, like I did, even taking a deep breath in, because of, for me at least at the time, body shame, feeling like my body was too big. And so the idea of actually inhaling felt disgusting to me because my stomach would get bigger. But that's the beginning path to getting out of the head and into the body. When we talk about intuition, we're talking about and living from that place, which you're right, I do. But that's not a place of the mind. It's instinctual, really. Call it intuition or instinct. It's like in the body. The wisdom is in there. I would say 90%. I have no idea about that.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it is.
Yeah,
90.
Of course, you want to run it through the mind a little bit to make sure you're not like whatever being crazy, but maybe not. I don't even know. That might be a caveat, not necessary. The point of the story is that for me, I remember my teacher at the time encouraging me to breathe, and I remember just so much of my life had been spent kind of sucking my body in, and so to be told that to get there, the first step is to breathe and breathe deeper. And
in your stomach, where like you said it, I've had that where I'm like, I don't want to breathe out or breathe in too much in my stomach because it makes your stomach go out. Like that is a thing that goes through people's minds, especially women, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it's a thing.
It's a thing. It's a real thing. And so that's the first and foundational piece to like getting into the body is the breath. And the belly is like that, think about an animal again in nature. It's like, or a dog, when you're rubbing their belly, like they're so free, and that dog has extraordinary instinct and and follows its intuition. So how do we look to nature to really kind of get those clues. They're our teachers,
Even babies, you think of babies,
Yeah.
they breathe in their stomach and they're the most, I mean, when they need food, when they need to poo, they cry. Like they know what they need.
They know
and they need it now.
And then they learn that there needs, the whole thing. So really remembering that. Thank you for bringing up babies, because we're just remembering these things. So that began that. And then once I kind of got comfortable with that, I actually began to practice clothed with my clothes on in front of the mirror. And I remember I would just kind of put one or two songs on, choose one or two songs, and just kind of like dance in the mirror. And dance or move, whatever you feel comfortable with, but kind of just starting to do that and starting to connect again with that animal. Like, my teacher used to say that our animal bodies are really our only true till death do us part.
So good. So good.
Yeah, it's like the first and only love of our life is this body. And so, okay, let's dance with it. And I was really uncomfortable at the time. And then eventually I got naked and started doing it. So I was well on my way.
And now, let me just say this. Mary Catherine, if you go to her Instagram, there's dance all over there. She teaches booty yoga. Like she has, we'll talk about movement practices and stuff like that. But that's a 180 from where you started.
Exactly. And thank you there are people today like yourself who meet me. And when I tell them that I was a virgin when I got married and I used to wear pants.
I would have thought you've been dancing your whole life.
Yeah. Oh, and then I had no musicality. No. I mean, I always had the moves. I had the moves. But teaching, I was always a half beat off on the things. Sometimes I still am, but I still just willing to get out there and do it. But yeah, so it's amazing how far you can come, and we underestimate. I remember at the time I thought it was going to take forever. But last thing to say about intuition is, so it starts with by being willing to be in the body and kind of live from that place, and that takes practice, for at least for someone who, like myself, is really stuck in the head, And then it's a matter, I've really enjoyed the past couple of years. I think I shared this with you when you lived with me, because you were like, how do you just trust yourself?
It's you guys, and I want to explain this so you kind of have like a minor visual of what I mean. Like, we'll be hanging out and Mary Catherine will just be like, she'll just be like, okay, we're going to do this now. Or like, oh, nope, we need to add this to the recipe. Something so random, but she follows everything she feels. And maybe not, maybe I don't know some of the things you don't follow that you feel, but like if something comes to her, you just trust that it's like what we're supposed to be doing next or what gets to happen next. And it's almost never wrong. I swear.
This hype girl.
The wildest thing.
How could it be, Because it's just what's true in the moment. And that's the thing, is being. And it also requires a certain level, for me at least, of I wouldn't say solitude, but I would say allowing some alone time in my life to actually tune in to the emergent truth in every moment. And so a couple of years ago, I started to see there's these things I feel. What if I just trusted them, no matter how small they are, like turn this way. I mean, I'm trying to think of examples right now, but like whatever the nudge, this emergent kind of like teeny voice that says this or that. And I thought, what if I, like a workout, just started like freaking trusting it and then acting on it? And just like any kind of workout program, that muscle gets stronger. And then life really becomes this real, like this adventure, like full adventure.
Yes.
Because then another saying Sid and I kind of developed when we were living together is, man, I'm not going to.
Yeah, sure.
But Sid is such a teacher for me. Like Sid, oh my goodness, the things I learned from you. Oh, like this woman had me waking up and actually doing things in the morning, which was wonderful.
We balance each other out.
And yet I would say at the time when you moved in, because of various circumstances, you were kind of like, there was a part of you kind of living a little bit in the future. Like, what are we going to do? Or
Always.
Yeah. And I remember I kind of developed this saying at that time, which was like, we can't be sure.
We just don't have the information yet, is what she would say. And for any controllers or type A, that's really hard to hear. Like, I would get really upset with you.
With that first couple of weeks, I was like, Sid, we don't have the information, like she's trying to decide something.
Like an event, if you're going to go like go to a social event, I'd be like, hey, like, what are you doing Friday? And it's like Thursday the week before. And she's like, we just don't have the information. And by Monday or Tuesday the next week, we would have more information literally that would allow us to either make that decision or not go. And that's when I started to realize, I was like, oh, it's true. Like, we don't have the information. We can't make a decision yet. And it helped me to realize that like I can plan and prepare, but life happens while you're busy making other plans. Truly.
It's true. And so there's of course that balance. And I mean, obviously I try to make plans, but yeah, there's many times I was like, we actually do not have the information to be able to make the decision. Like I imagine, and just for everyone, like I imagine the way I at least orient my reality is that it's whatever you want to call it, like there's a quantum field happening and there's always information coming in. And if there's a decision to be made, I can access that information and then I'll know. And then I also can access, the information hasn't landed yet. I'm still collecting data.
Yes.
But
it's trusting that things are happening that we can't see. And that's what people have a hard time with because they think that they control everything in their life. Yeah. So it's really about releasing control as well.
Isn't that fun? I love it. It's a fun ride.
It's way more fun though because you allow space. You allow space to trust that like you're going to get more information or something's going to come in or someone's going to call you or whatever it may be. And I think it actually makes life like a game. Like it makes it fun because we never know what's going to happen. We think we know what's going to happen. And Joe Dispenza talks a lot about that. That makes life boring and monotonous. When you wake up every day, assuming you know exactly what's going to happen, where if you wake up like a little kid, like it's the day before Christmas and you have no idea what's going to happen that day, you leave space for miracles and for excitingness and all of that.
Yes. And this is where I'm starting to think about, maybe you too. It's like, this is where either having the right people in your life who understand that you operate that way or being able to communicate to them. Because it's definitely alternative. Meaning if you just start kind of, I don't have the information yet. People are expecting you to be the type that it's like, on it, you may want to be able to use language such as like, hey, I'm trying this new thing where I'm really practicing letting go of control in my life. And so I'm really trying to sharpen my intuition and live with intuition. So I'm, not saying yes as quickly right now. And I'm going to sleep on things. So thank you for understanding while I'm kind of sharpening this tool. I might not be, as whatever, the same way that you expected me to be. And I think having that language for the people that we care about in our lives is probably important as we set out to really shift from that monotonous life to a life of more in the moment, more miraculous.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think once you do that with your friend, your friends will most likely catch on, and they'll be the same way. Where now, just examples like even when I'm going to hang out with Mary Catherine or she's coming to hang out with me, if something comes up in one of our lives, we're in a very mutual understanding that if it doesn't work out for us to hang out, there's a reason for it, and it could be because we're tired. It doesn't have to be a big reason, but there's this understanding where because of that, we don't fight about little things. Little things don't get under our skin with each other. We don't. Get upset if we can't do something that we said that we might be doing. And I think that's where like unconditional love and just like understanding is rooted in is trust.
Yep. Trust in life, really, in the flow of it, and we have new information. That information is, I'm on this couch now, can't come over.
But I do love telling people I just don't have the information yet, because once I say that, people love it and they're like, they start saying it.
Amazing.
It's so fun. Hashtag we don't have the information. So there's so many things that we could talk about. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
I would love to talk about, since you spoke about dancing a little bit, you're starting a movement practice, but I would love if you could talk about the, like, not necessarily the science, but the idea behind the importance of movement in the body, and that being equivalent to happiness and joy and abundance in our lives. There is a pretty strong correlation.
I could talk about a lot of things, but I think one of the most kind of like laser thing I could say about movement is something that my friend Daniel Schmachtenberger, and I know I've shared with you about him, but he really is one of the most brilliant minds today. He tracks civilization design and the collapse of economies. He's like, he's
up there.
He's up there. And so I only preface that to say that what I'm about to share and what he told me about movement the other day really brought it home and actually put me in a position where I'm teaching, and I'm starting to teach again now. Because yes, I've created a movement practice and I haven't been teaching for a couple of years for various reasons. And yet it's time. So he told me, he said, he goes, recent studies have shown that the number one most common, so if you look at, let's say, 1,000 depressed people with diagnosed depression, the most common thread between all of them is that they lacked a variety of movement patterns. In other words, they only moved in very like linear, like specific ways.
Like walking every day or running every single day or just doing one.
Or I'm guessing if they're depressed, they may just be laying around more accurately, but yes, So in other words, the more varied and obviously consistent our movement patterns, the less depressed we will be. And I bring up the word, I focus on depression because I definitely, that's like this part of me that I'm always working with, this part of me that kind of can go into melancholy and depression. And then again, also just mental health right now is like really, the fact that I, the other day, was having a really hard mental health day and I have a lot of resources and a lot of support.
And you've done years of work on yourself.
And I was really low. I'm talking, and I was like, okay, like if I'm really low, I can't imagine, it's hard to even begin to imagine. So of course, then the question, what can I do? And movement is just like, it's just a gift that was given to me. I feel like it is from divine, it's from God, and it's my passion. And so teaching movement and encouraging movement. So hopefully anyone who, hears that it has any proclivity towards, depression in any form. Like, I don't know, like just do some weird movement, even on your couch. Like this doesn't mean you need to go out and like, hopefully eventually getting out into some classes with other people is probably the next best step. But even if you just like do your fingers weird, totally. It's like, oh, that was weird.
Yes. Ever since I heard you talk about this, I've been like thug walking to the fridge and like I'll just do because it's like how it's also like an energetic thing, right? If we're doing the same thing every day, just like we talked about, you're not letting any new energy come into your life or into your business or into your relationships. Like you're not letting new people or things come in. And so if you can put on a song and just move your hips a little bit, like it doesn't have to be a full on practice, but doing things differently so that you can let new energy flow, I think is the concept to start. Yeah, and the science of it is it actually creates neurogenesis. So it creates new neural pathways. So the differently you move, it's almost like the more different you move, the more your brain gets the opportunity to create a new pathway. It's like a workout. Yeah, it's great. So what is something like your movement practice entail? Like what would someone expect if they were to go to something like your class or some other people in the, like share what the tea is? Yeah, well, I want to answer. I thought you were going to ask like my daily movement practice, and I just want to say, like, there obviously, based on our conversation thus far, there is no order to my situation. Whatever comes, and she does it. So, just if anyone is listening, if you want to change it up, that's a way to start, though. Yeah, whatever comes up for you, just go do that. Yeah, just trust it. I'm like, today I want to move like this. I have the luxury and privilege, honestly, to get to do that. So I'm grateful. And so I just say that to say that you can allow creativity to inspire you. It doesn't have to be this thing, But I think when I'm really depressed, I get to local classes, and because that just kind of puts me in the environment to just get through it. So that's that. But in my class, so like you said, I've been teaching boot yoga for about 10 years. I was a master trainer. Which is what for people, because not a lot of people know about boot yoga. Oh, okay. It's BUTI, Booty Yoga, and it's a fusion of vinyasa, tribal dance, and this spiral structure technique. So imagine like warrior 1, warrior 2, but instead of just holding it, you're spiraling your hips, you're spiraling your ribs. There's many different other ways in which we weave that in. So I found that about 10 years ago, and it was for sure when I was just meeting Jenna LaFlemme as well, was when I was like, oh, this is going to be like how I heal my body in relationship to my body. So I dove into it with the founder. She and I kind of did the thing, and she's brilliant. And yeah, a couple of years ago, I noticed my body wanting to move in a little bit of a different way. And so I took a break, and at the time, actually, I was living in Alabama, and I was gifted this class that I got to do whatever I wanted to with it. So I kind of did this, 4-month beta test of a new form of movement that's emerged from my experience with Booty Yoga. And I'm calling it right now the journey, because the students the people in class mainly say it feels like a journey, whether you want to call that like a medicine journey or just kind of an arc to it,
And so for me, I think, I don't know if it's my age or if it's actually just the way consciousness is kind of shifting, but I notice I want to open class differently, meaning I want this opportunity at the beginning of class, which I do in my class, to like really connect to the breath and body and like get that going for a little bit. Really like find the poetry of movement at the beginning. And then my body specifically, and maybe yours as well, I love to like move, I need actually to move big amounts of energy, big chi. So I have these 2 or 3 tracks on it that we are just going for it, whether it's in tribal dance or like one whole song, we have one movement that just gives us the opportunity to get it out, Anyway, and then we rest a little, and then we pray a little, and then we dance a little, and then we, have a long shavasana.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, so that's that.
I'll say it's incredible, and I've done now just two classes with you, one on your birthday and then one last week. And I'm not a dancer. I am like the opposite of a dancer. I'm not a good dancer.
You aren't?
No, I don't know if you saw me in your class, but it doesn't matter because you say you hold such a safe space. I don't care, but I can feel the difference in my energy and my mood after doing a class, like a significant difference.
Oh, good.
And so I think that's just like a testament of, first of all, if you're scared to do something like this or be a part of, go to a class or whatever. I'm not a class girl. I'm not big on like, the whole dancing thing, but it's once I do it, I'm so glad I did it. And so it's one of those things I kind of have to it's kind of like for most people doing like a general workout. I don't have to force myself to do it. I enjoy it. I got to force myself to go dance because I know what it's doing for my mind and for my body.
I love that.
Yeah. I feel like I've told you that. But
well, I did try to get you into the center of the circle.
I did not do the center of the circle. So like I'm out.
I expected it.
Yeah, kind of.
I heard today that, we hear this statement, safe space.
Uh-huh.
I love what I heard today. Ram Dass said that safe space, he defined it as holding a space where you don't have any agenda.
And I love that.
I just loved it. I was like, yeah. And
so good.
Yeah.
That's a really good way
to frame it and understand what you're actually doing. Because, we hear this a lot.
Safe space, you could be like,
what is that?
Yeah.
It's just to be a space where and so with you being in class, it's true. I don't have
it's trusting and honoring the process of each person.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
So powerful.
And yeah, that's all I'll say about that.
No, that's really good. Okay, I have a few more questions.
Okay.
One of them is going from this like picture perfect young woman into still an amazing, incredible human being, just not what it used to look like. We've had a conversation last week about like social media and how, it's playing a game, right? Like being online, being in the world right now is like, I feel like I'm going to leave that in. Bless you.
Okay. Social media
and like even life right now, there's what I feel is that people are only rewarded socially if they conform or if they give into trends. And it's really true right now for me. And I think that there are exceptions and there are people doing it differently, but what is rewarded on social media is, people like and comment on the reels and the voiceovers and all that stuff and the playing the game.
Yeah.
And I think you do such an amazing job. And we're both in this journey of like figuring out, if I didn't know how it would look, what would I do? And we had a really good conversation about this. And I think there's so many people that will be listening that have social media businesses or are online and feel this like energy of conformity and fitting into a certain mold that we're supposed to be and supposed to look like and supposed to act like and move like. What is your insight or some of your thoughts on this or advice or anything? Because you do you're so opposite.
I am. And I'm honestly still in the research and development to see if it's possible. If I can be a businesswoman who owns a business, who shows up on social media, really raw and authentic, and maybe isn't always talking about business. In fact, I'm not always talking about my business. And it's an experiment, it feels like right now. Because like you said, and I would like to just say up until now, it's been rewarded. And yet, as I'm tracking, quote, the trend or whatever the energy, I'm like, I actually believe that there's a tipping point right now happening. And I think as consumers, we're getting smarter, as a culture, we're getting more interested in depth.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a tipping point, meaning that those who are willing to just let that fire hose fire, and say the truth and speak the truth with raw authenticity and tell us how you're doing. I'll be honest, I'd love to see a lot more, and I'm trying to put more out there on social media of stories, personal stories, instead of like, for me at least, I love reading people who are just kind of dictating their personal lives in like little ordinary moments. And then I can kind of glean what it is to be them as a human versus maybe telling me advice. I think there's a shift. I hope there's a shift happening into more artistry, the artistry of observing this plant right here and like what that's bringing up for me, and to share that in a way that maybe elicits in someone their own presence. But then I'm like, if I keep doing that, am I going to make money?
Right.
I mean, these are real questions, but I'm willing to say them because I'm like, I think there are more people out there having the same experience, and probably even those who, as you say, like have won the game. Anyway, have won the game, or doing it. I wonder if they're, I don't know, feeling the same way,
I mean, I imagine they are. And I think, when we have conversations, usually I end up hearing the same kind of trends from other people.
Yeah.
Because we are all so connected, especially now more than I think we were before 2020. Yeah. And I think a lot of us are feeling that way. I know I am for sure, but we've done it a certain way for so long. It's kind of trying to unremember, like, what was life like before social media? What were we doing in the beginning that was like supportive for us, that we love to do, and like why we all fell in love with the idea of social media in the first place. And there's so much selling, there's so much like non-transparency or inauthenticity, I think.
Yeah.
And something I really appreciate about you is just your total transparency always, and not just in social media, but like in the way that you dress and the way that you don't wear makeup. I'd actually like to talk about that with you too. Because a lot of us feel pressure to like look a certain way, be a certain way, dress a certain way, get plastic surgery a certain way, add size to our butt. And something you brought up to me was we talked about makeup once. It was I would love if you shared that conversation because it was so powerful for me.
Well, it was powerful for me because you shared with me, in our industry, if I may.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
One of my rubs with network marketing is my experience of being in the audience of network marketing or watching presentations of network marketing is that I haven't seen myself yet really represented on stage. Myself meaning a woman that is in her feminine energy and willing to be really seen. I don't want to, there have been amazing women on stages, don't get me wrong, that they have inspired the heck out of me. I'll just go to the makeup piece. I'm like, I told Sid, I was like, I can't see her face. There's so much makeup happening that I can't feel her. I don't see her. And then Sid, it was really powerful for me because you shared it and said, man, Catherine, it's true. Like I've never had blemishes really.
You have a beautiful, like, skin.
Yeah. I get it from my mama, and so I can't, and yet you shared with me, like, coming from someone like yourself who's had a history of horrible skin in your
horrible skin,
that you're like, my God, like it's hard for us to like just, and so that helped me have so much more compassion.
Well, it's hard for us to feel like it isn't a distract for me. For me, if I am on a stage or even sometimes on social media and I'm not wearing makeup, I feel so distracted by my skin, and not so much anymore because my skin is so much better. Yeah. But in the past, I felt so distracted by my skin that I felt like I was being so selfish and couldn't focus on the message I wanted to relay. And it was a distraction for me.
Yeah.
So that was my come from in that.
Yeah. And that actually just helped me neutralize my strong opinion about it because it really helped me just realize that every woman gets to have their own form of expression. I do wear makeup, but like I kind of err towards more natural looking. Man, it's so fun to be a woman. And I'm starting to really get that and to play with that. And that would be my only hope is that is what it is, that you're like letting yourself be art and playing with it. And whatever it is, maybe, and I love that your journey actually in healing your skin was an internal cleansing So that's kind of something that's existing for a woman to not only like, yeah, put your makeup on, but simultaneously maybe be working on cleansing the body on a cellular level so that you can have choice around that.
Yeah.
And like you've been going barefaced all the time.
I know, and I love it.
Gorgeous.
Ever since we had that conversation, because you said like you're so beautiful without makeup, and I don't think I've honestly ever heard someone say that because my skin was so bad. People just don't compliment each other as often as we compliment each other and spend. But I think it was really powerful for me because I'm like, wait, I am really beautiful without makeup as well. Like I don't need to wear it. I wear it when I want to because it is fun. But I think the danger, especially with social media, is it comes as like an expectation. Where like there are women who go into the office or they go on social media. It's like people ask if they're sick because they're not wearing makeup. Like I've literally had that in high school. People are like, "Are you doing okay?" I'm like, never ask that to someone because it's their choice. But people feel like they have to do that. They have to do that.
Oh man. And
I think reversing, even just the way. I think of like an example. This is kind of going to like pop culture, but I don't even know if I want to talk about this, but I guess I will. I'm like already in it. Like the Kardashian look, right? Big butt, big boobs, big lips, which is beautiful look for them. But now a lot of them are getting reversals on their surgeries and they're going back to this thinner look. And what scares me for people is that they just went to go into life-threatening surgery, to look a certain way, to conform to whoever's at the top, to then now have that person reverse the conformity to back what it was before, where you would have literally been trending or perfect the way that you were. And that's, I think, just, one small example, but it's like, I think it's really important as women, as men, whatever, that we just own like our beauty.
Really. And optimize this vessel that we have. And
in the way that it is.
In the way that it is.
Yeah.
And because there's so like, while it might not be surgery, there are so many different kind of psychological surgery you can do, become a better, more compassionate person. But there's so much we could do with these vessels. And as you were speaking, I thought, wow, what an opportunity, what an invitation for all of us, going back to social media and all that, what an invitation for all of us to, knowing that is fascinating to me, and that it's all being reversed. It just puts more power back into the individual, back into myself, that says, okay, I get to cultivate confidence in this body, this heart, this being. And then going back to social media, it's like, I just really want to go back to that and say, let's like get a movement going where we tip the scale.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that what's happening currently is bad. It's just, I'm kind of bored with it a little.
It's like keeping up with the Joneses. You're literally always continuing to feel like you're not enough, or you got to live up to this, or you got to follow this, or you got to do this. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting.
And I think the question becomes, okay, well, what's the tip of the scale? Who are we being on the other side of the tip? And I think it goes back to what you're saying. It's doing this before we remembered how we were supposed to, meaning being childlike, having fun, like, and also being honest, like using our wisdom, and just, I don't know, I just want to see truth.
Yeah.
Like, tell me what it's like being you from the inside. And like, tell me what it's like sitting at that cafe after your breakup. Tell me what it's like listening to that song driving down the road. Tell me what it's like the littlest moments I want to hear more of. And I'm going to try to keep putting them out. My life's not that interesting. So sometimes I'm like, what can I talk about? I mean, it is and it isn't, internally it's very interesting.
Totally. You can talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
You can talk a lot about that.
Anyway, I just hope that. And then I would love to see a reality, and let's just, make it so that like those people who are willing to really come at that level of stripped down sharing are the ones who also are rewarded in their artistry. And whether that's also financially, but also with a really rich life of people and fulfillment and joy. And I really think the arts are going to be the thing. We talked about this.
Let's touch on that. That was going to be the next thing I wanted to touch on, because Mary Catherine was over at my house. If you guys didn't see, we were arm wrestling. We're trying to bring more play and joy into our friendship as well. And it's just very easy to do. It's very easy to do, but we were hanging out, we were spending a little bit of time together, and we started to talk about like kind of what was the Renaissance era?
Well, we were talking about, just right now where we're at as a pretty much America, where we're at as a civilization, and just kind of the timeline of general collapses of civilizations. It's said that there's an arch and a fall of most civilizations around 300 years. We're at 256 years. So we began to muse on where this all was headed. Yeah.
Yeah. And we talked a lot about like how there's certain things that are so prominent right now. And I think that your conversation with Daniel, right?
Yeah.
Brought this into awareness for you, but like the arts are going to become potentially really, really prominent again, where artistry, I know growing up, I wanted to be an artist. Like that was what I wanted to be, in some way, shape or form, whether it was fashion, music, writing, but the, industrial revolution created a reality for a lot of us where our parents were like, no, go to get a 9-to-5, get a job. The arts are not like, I want to be a graphic designer. My dad's like, that's never going to pay. And then 10 years later, it's like, that would have been a great profession. Right. But I think that the arts in so many ways, and if you can elaborate, are going to be praised the way that they deserve to be praised financially, especially.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that was essentially the conversation. It was just really fun to kind of imagine. It's not super fun to imagine the collapse of the civilization.
Definitely not. But we're all in it together, just like 2020.
But what I was imagining is this idea of the intensity of that. We're feeling the intensity of that, whether it be the economy, gas prices, all the things that are happening right now. There's an intensity to it. So I started to imagine, I was like, okay, what's going to be the equal and opposite intensity on the other end of the spectrum? Let's call it the light spectrum. That's going to balance, because there's all the universe is all, or whatever, we're always achieving balance. So it was then that I was like, oh, it's going to be the arts. There's going to be a real renaissance of the arts. It's going to be the art that there's a flip, like it's going to take right now. Arts, let's say, is 20% important ish. I was like, whoa, we're going to be living in a reality where the arts is 80% important, because as we know, like, think about the 60s. This is just one example of like the music of the 60s. It influenced the world. It influenced the entire culture, and probably the and I still believe, and this is why one of the big reasons I do network marketing is to have enough resources to then reallocate a lot of that into the arts and into artists. Because I do believe that they probably have the highest touch point of influencing the direction of this whole thing. We've got these amazing artists like Londrell coming online.
So many.
Gosh, anyway, so then the question becomes like, okay, here's this shift that's coming. And just like your dad said, don't get into graphic design because they won't pay money. But now we get to really look and ask ourselves, where can we cultivate our artistry as an intelligent strategy for survival, meaning for thriving, let's even say. Because like, let's say 20, 30 years from now, Sid, you are an amazing artist. This woman is a prodigy of music and juggling. But like, listen, I know you're building your business, but I see that you're still cultivating your artistry, and I love to see that, because there's music, there's also your eye for fashion, and I do see a future for you with that. We talked about that. We can talk about it anytime. But fashion and how that will fashion, art, music, all of this. So I would say if there's an art inside of you, start to cultivate it, because it may very well be the thing that actually is the highest contribution to society in the next 50 years, and the thing that probably, hopefully, gets you paid. I would love to see that reality.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know that you don't like promote or even share it a lot, but I loved your book of like poems, I guess you can call it.
Yes.
And I would love if you shared it with people, because I can like add a link here. But I think that's like an example of a piece of art that has been created by you that has impacted my life. And whenever I need to revisit it, like even on a daily basis, I do. So if you can share that, I think it would be really cool.
Yeah, about 3 years ago, I wrote. I've always loved writing. It's probably my first expression of art, and dance being the second, but writing really gets me going, So anyways, about 3 years ago, I went through a extraordinarily challenging breakup, like ripped through me, really challenging. Anyway, moved home to live with my mom at age 33. Yeah. The place, just imagine where you could go. That was 3 years ago, and now 4 years ago.
Wow, your life is completely different.
Completely different. I was living at home, in debt, heartbroken, and I got out, you guys. I got out one of those big stickies, when I like after watching Netflix for like a month and eating Reese's cups. And I put the sticky on the wall, planning to plan out my whole life, you know, and get out of this hole that I was in. And I stood there with a Sharpie marker thinking I was gonna like, I don't know, something. And this poem came through. And I had, up to that point, I had not yet really written poetry. And this poem came through. And then more came and more came and more came. For about 3 months, I lived in this portal or whatever of taking long walks by the river in Alabama and just capturing poem after poem. And it ultimately collected into a book of poetry called Home. A, because I wrote it at home, but B, it's really a collection of poetry about the experience of codependent relationships and ultimately the inevitable coming home to yourself after you thought that it was going to be the thing that solved all the things.
Yeah.
And then, we're right back to, you know, loving ourselves.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And that book, I'll say this, when I lived with Mary Catherine last year in the late end of the year, it was like perfect timing for me to read that book because I was coming to the end of a relationship, and it was, I mean, there were just poems that would make me cry because it was so relatable and so special for me. So I'm so grateful that you put it together.
And that's the thing. That's why I write.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's why I want people to write from the human experience, because there's nothing like that moment where someone has put together words in a way
that elicits so much emotion.
Yeah. And that articulates what you were feeling, but you hadn't yet been able to articulate for whatever reason. And then you like have a voice. I just, come on.
It's amazing.
Come on. Dig deep, peeps.
It's amazing.
Tell us what's up because we need it.
Yes. This is seriously so good. I want to have you on again because again, we're going to go get salads. I don't want to make you like too hungry here, but this has been just more value than I even could have imagined and hoped for. And I would love to have you on again, maybe in a few months or next year, to talk even like just some weird shit and like really get really weird.
That's not wait that long.
We won't wait that long. But I hope that you know, you guys got value out of this. Do you have anything else that you want to say for this episode, this time around, to the people? You brought so much value.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what's coming through right now is just going back. As cheesy as it may sound, it's simple, but like the breath, you know, and just continuing to cultivate your relationship with your connection to your breath and living in that presence and trusting what's true, whether that be a piece of writing that's coming through or a direction to take in your life or like what to add to your salad. You know, it's all, the information is actually all in the breath. And sometimes you gotta wait for the information. In summary.
Really good. I love you so much.
I love you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right. Where can people find you?
MC Charette on the Instagram. MCSHUR. And then I'm sure you'll find it.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. We love you guys. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.